Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Jags PGA Golf Stream. My name's Mike Thornton. Joining me tonight, as usual, Tony Altieri. How you doing, Tony?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. We hit a winner last week, so I'm fired up and ready to talk a little bit of Travelers Championship recap and get into the Rocket
I know
Mortgage,
I can
man.
see the energy from you. You got me up past my bedtime tonight. I mean, let's apologize to some of the folks that were expecting us on at 7. We had, life always throws us curveballs. Had another curveball thrown to us, so we had to delay it 2 hours. So sorry for any of those that were looking for it at 7. But we're excited to get this rolling. We wanted to get you the content as quick as possible to give you all of, what's left of tonight and all of tomorrow to help you with your betting. So Tony, you nailed it. Our second stream back on the air, and you hit a winner. We hit a winner. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
go.
yeah, no, it's
I mean,
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna bring you up the recap, and you can start talking about that and all the excitement that went on. I mean, it was super exciting for all of us. But yeah, let me bring up that recap for you and let you take over from there.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. You and I were talking offline before this. Pretty much came unglued when Kramer Hickok hit that birdie putt on 18 to push it into basically overtime, right? And again, like we talked about leading up into the week, if you look at the leaderboard, the guys at the top of the board late in the tournament, it was guys who have every single skill set that you can think of. Bryce Garnett finished in fifth place. He's a guy who doesn't hit it very far. Great putter. Abraham Answer. People were ready to hang Abraham Answer after the first day. The guy makes the cut on the number, comes through, finishes T4 with an amazing weekend, a great Sunday. And of course, our boy, Harris English. I say our boy. I hate Harris English. I don't think I've bet him all year until this year, until this tournament. But you know what? Hey, he came through for us in the clutch. I mean, good God, 8 extra holes. I mean, I sat there for a good hour and a half, 2 hours after the tournament ended, watching these guys go par, par, par over and over and over again. I got to the point where I was getting mental fatigue trying to watch this thing break down. But fortunately for ended the way to Harris English sinks a big birdie putt on the eighth playoff hole to close the deal out. The Jags get a win, 40-1, big hit for us. So I'm excited for any of you guys that tailed us this week. Hopefully you were watching the picks. Maybe you followed Mike and I and placed some of those same bets that we did. But hey, when we're a winner, you're a winner. So I'm pumped on where we're at right now.
Yeah, it was super funny. I was here on my computer getting ready for some things during the week for streaming, and I had the PGA Tour website up, and it's always a little bit behind. I saw that was super excited when I saw Harris birdie on the 18th, and I've never seen that guy show so much emotion as he did. Like you would have thought he won it. Maybe he thought he did because I don't think he expected Kramer to come back and birdie that one. And then I see, I see that Kramer gets it within about 8 feet of the hole, and I'm just waiting for the site to update while I'm working. And then your text comes in, and it was like, oh boy, I knew exactly what happened. I knew it was time to stop what I was doing here and get on, watch the TV, which I did. And like you said, 8 holes. I got to ask you, Tony. So this whole format where they go 18, they played 18, 7 of the 8 overtime extended holes, and they only went to 17 once, I think, and 18 was the rest. And I get it why they do that. It's because everybody's already made their way to the 18th hole. What do you think about that format? Do you think they should change that up a little bit?
The only thing that I would suggest, right, like I like that you have to play a hole over again. There's some tournaments like the U.S. Open prior to this year. If you went into overtime, like you played a full 18 holes the next day. If you go back in time to 2008 when Tiger beat Rocco Mediate in the U.S. Open, they played a full 18 the next day. Not a big fan of that, right? Like we live in this culture where it's like microwave culture. Give it to me now. Show me how it's done. And we want sudden death. We want winners now. We want to know what the results are going to be. So like watching these guys basically go par, par, par through 8 holes. They played, I think, 17 twice. The only thing that I would say, I do like the playoff hole format, but you got to get to a point where you integrate a hole that's going to either provide a little more risk reward or force guys to do things, right? Play a long par 3, play a par 5, bring eagle or birdie into play. Like try and change it up. Watching these guys, I mean, Harris English, I don't think he hit the fairway once in the playoff on 18. I mean, the only time he hit the fairway was on 17 twice when he was hitting iron off the tee. So again, I think the format works in my opinion. I just don't know how you would go do anything else, right? Like when you play a baseball game and it's a tie, you play extra innings until someone wins. Now they have ties in baseball, which whatever, but you don't bring out home run derby. It's not like we talked about it. It's not like soccer or hockey where you have this sudden death opportunity, which is fantastic for TV. I just don't know how you incorporate it in golf.
Yeah, I threw this out at Tony earlier. I'm like, hey, I think this is going to take off sometime, Tony. So I'm saying 4 holes of extended golf. If nobody wins in 4 holes, keep it on the 18th and either do a little chip and putt contest or a putt off. I mean, let's keep it right there. I get a little. The only bad thing about waiting is, you have to wait for them to get back to the tee on the 18th, and you got like 5-10 minute delays after that hole ends, and everyone has to go back to the 18th hole again. And you had people running back and forth. So I'm saying 4 holes. Let's do what soccer does. Let's do what hockey does. Let's have something exciting at the end. And again, maybe it's a putt off. Maybe it's a chip and putt. Put them in the bunker. And let's see what, Harris, by the way, English, that bunker shot, Tony, I thought he was done. That thing was embedded in that thing.
Yep.
And it was right next to the grass. I'm like, there's no way he's going to get this up on the green. And if he does, he's going to have a long par putt. And, dude, what a shot. Fantastic. I mean, I don't think he could hit that again. If he tried to hit that 10 times in a row, I'll bet you 9 of the 10 go bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that, but I mean, Kramer Hickok hit some unbelievable putts to save par. I mean, there were 2 absolute lip outs from distance where he had birdie putts that he just missed. The thing that probably triggered me the most, where I got pissed off, was they kept going back to this freaking love story between Jordan Spieth and Kramer Hickok, right? Oh, he caddied for him. They both played at Texas. He's got the same bunker shot that Jordan Spieth did. I'm like, for a guy that had money on Harris English, like, I couldn't be more pissed off about the circumstances watching the broadcast kind of just ram this. Let the guys play. I hear what you're saying about like the opportunity to change it up and do something. I just don't know, because you go to a putt off, you have guys that are better putters than others, and so maybe that favors the guy one way or another, right? I threw it out to you. Why not do long drive then? Well, some guys hit the ball farther than other guys, so it's really difficult. I think for the golf playoff, it has to be a full hole because it incorporates all the different aspects of playing golf and adds that little bit of pressure, right? Like everybody's behind puckers just a little bit when you've got to hit a drive, you've got to stick an approach, and you got to sink a putt. Fortunately for us, Harris was able to do that down the stretch, and he basically saved our week. The thing that probably pissed me off more than Kramer Hickok hitting the birdie on 18 was the fact that Harris birdied 16. He's up 13. I think he had like a 2 or 3 shot lead at that point in time, and then he bogeyed 17, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, he gagged this thing back, and then he drains this unbelievable putt on 18. I'm like, okay, great, he won. So to go through the roller coaster of emotions, it was fantastic. It just took forever, and I wish they would have picked different hole selection. Once they got into hole 3, 4, 5, it's like, dude, go play another hole, get this thing over with, make somebody hit a shot, make somebody step up and sink a putt.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a little disrespectful to Harris English. Not that he could see it, but he's going to see it afterwards and hear about it and all that Jordan Spieth. And it just felt like the network wanted Hickok to win.
Oh, my gosh. The crowd. The crowd was
the crowd as well.
They were all cheering for Kramer Hickok. Like, again, I'm not a Harris English fan, but I had money on him, and I just could not be more triggered by what I was hearing and seeing in the broadcast, whether it was coming from the fans or from the booth. Like, I just wanted to choke somebody and say, dude, can we just get like bipartisan coverage here? I felt like somebody voted for Trump watching normal media, like just blown away by how one-sided everything was.
Well, I think it kind of drove Harris English a little bit. He doesn't show a lot of emotion, but I'm sure that he's probably thinking to himself, what's going on here? I get it. Hickok was the underdog, right? The guy, he had missed half of his cuts. I think he played, 15? I'm not sure, but I know he had only made about half the cuts that he played in. And, and they're pulling for the underdog. Who's his buddy? Is it Sam Ryder or Burns? I get them confused. They kept showing that shot as well with
Burns.
them in there.
Yeah, they kept going to Sam Burns.
And what was that? What was that mug? Was that wine that they had there?
Yeah. You ever seen a Magnum, right? You buy a big old jug of wine. They're like, I mean, it's a bottle of Silver Oak, so the thing probably costs like $2,000 or $3,000. Who
Oh
knows?
my gosh.
And all they wanted to talk about how was Kramer's going to crack this thing open, and then Harris English shoves that putt down his throat, and I walk away with the grand. So I'm sitting here on a Tuesday, happy that I won. Bummed for Kramer Hickok, but hey, good for the brand, good for us. We hit a winner,
Yeah.
and we're going to keep things rolling.
All right. Well, let's get into it this week. We got the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and let's get into that a little bit. Tony, why don't you tell us a little bit about the golf course and the key stats for this week?
Yeah, Detroit Golf Club, they play a mix of holes. There's actually two courses there on site. It's in Detroit proper. They actually hosted an event here a couple days, not necessarily a charity event, but an event that is very inclusive, right? They had a number of African-American golfers involved. It was a big fundraiser, great deal there. But the course is, I went back and looked and found an article that was written by PGAtour.com about the course. It is literally the flattest course on tour. The only events that have ever been played there are the Rocket Mortgage in 2019 and 2020. So there's a lot of course history. And the thing that's even more amazing about the course is the leaderboard in 2019, which Nate Lashley won. You're going to hear it over and over again if you're following it this week. He Monday queued into the golf tournament and ended up winning. He shot like 23 under. Wasn't very good off the tee. The leaderboard was all over the place with guys on there. And then the following year in 2020, a completely different set of golfers. Bryson wins, arguably the best player on the planet at that point in time. It was the debut of the bomb and gouge method, in which he's used numerous times. It's what he used to win the U.S. Open. Matthew Wolff finished the second. And so there's a much higher correlation between off the tee game on the course in 2020 than it was in the prior year. It is a Donald Ross design, so he's designed a few of those. I think Wyndham, Eastlake, which is where the Tour Championship is played. It's a par 72, 7,400 yards. But again, it's not an overly long course. This is going to set up very similar to Travelers, where it's going to bring a number of different skill sets into play. So whether you're a guy who's long off the tee, or you're a guy who can stick approaches, or you're a guy who's a great scrambler, really what it's going to come down to is putting this week. So the key stats for us, the things that I'm kind of looking at, trying to find ways to do it. I'm looking at the 2020 course setup, which 2021 sounds like it's going to be set exactly the same it was last year. Strokes gained off the tee. That's obviously going to favor guys who blast the ball a long ways. The farther down the fairway you are, because the rough is not going to be that tough, the better opportunity you have to get it up and down and score. Birdies are better, right? We talk 23 under, 25 under. You have to go low here if you want to contend. Par 4 scoring. There's a number of par 4s in different lengths from 380 yards all the way up to 500 yards. So you have to be proficient on par scores. You have to take advantage of your tee shots. And then opportunities gained. Whether you're in the rough or in the fairways are wide here. They're generous. The rough is not very penal. You're going to need guys who are striking the ball well. If you have to scramble, you're going to be in trouble. If you're missing greens and you're trying to get up and down for par on those par 4s, it's going to be a long day, because you're not going to find yourself in contention come Sunday.
All right, Tony, I know we're a little late tonight, so I know that people are waiting to get into the details. So let's move right on to the next one, where we're talking about the stats and the course history ranking.
Yep, key stats. So we take a look at the stat ranking. I mentioned a number of the key stats. There's a few others mixed in there, but those are the four main ones. When we look at guys statistically, based on those strokes gain metrics, based on how guys are scoring, we have here ranked from top to bottom. No big surprise, Charlie Hoffman, who may be having his best year in, a decade on tour, who's been playing great, always finds himself in contention. He's number one in the stat ranking. Harold Varner, very good off the tee. The guy scores in bunches. His big problem is he gets in trouble. The good news for guys who are erratic, and the reason that I mention this is there's not a lot of trouble. If you hit wayward drive, you hit bad shots, you're still going to be able to score, to hit greens in regulation, give yourself an opportunity to make birdie putts. So in terms of the guys that you should be targeting, whether it's daily fantasy or it's betting this week, take some flyers. Take guys that are a little more erratic. Max Homa is a perfect example of that, who's ranked number 10 in the stat model. A guy who I believe he has in his last 9 tournaments 3 top 10s and 6 missed cuts. That's the kind of guy that could have success on a course like that this week because he does hit the ball a long way. And when he starts scoring, he scores in bunches. Jason Kokrak is another guy. When he gets hot, he's having his best putting year on tour. These guys can show up and win golf tournaments. And so when you're targeting guys, find value down the board, the betting board, right? My card's going to start much lower than it has in previous tournaments. I'm going to be looking somewhere north of 40-1 when I'm building out my betting card this week. Additionally, course history, we've got 2 years of data, and the 2 years that we have are kind of all over the place. With that being said, there's a couple guys who have played here really well both years. Doc Redman is one, Seb Straka is another one, and you look at their game, what they do well. Doc Redman hasn't been the best off of the tee this year as of late, but Seb Straka is an absolute machine, and he drives the ball a ton. So I'm going to be targeting guys in that range, right? A little bit higher odds, a little bit lower DK salary, trying to find guys who, when they get hot, they can contend and win. And even though distance doesn't have a massive correlation to the leaderboard here the last 2 years, the closer you are to the hole, the better opportunities you're going to give yourself. So I also will be incorporating and looking at guys who hit the ball a long way off the tee.
I'm looking at this list here, and nobody's really getting me excited here. I know Charlie's been having a decent year, but I always feel, and I've been playing Charlie a lot lately in my Draftkings lineups, and I just feel he lets me down on the weekend. I know he had a pretty decent Saturday last week, or Friday. I forget which one it was. He shot like a 7 under.
On
Friday. That was Friday, so that got him made the cut. But I don't think he did much on the weekend. I know I had him in the U.S. Open. He made the cut, I believe, and then he just kind of tanked on the weekend. I gave up. And looking at the board here, Varner, I'm talking from a DK perspective here, Draftkings perspective. Never been really a Varner guy. Siwoo Kim, I heard his name a couple years ago. What was it? Pat, who's the other DFS guy out there, Tony, talking?
Oh, Pat Mayo.
Loves Siwoo Kim, right?
Yeah, how could you forget Mayo? He's like the godfather of DFS podcast.
I don't know. It's late, Tony. You've got me up past my bedtime. You got to remember this, okay? Have
a cup of coffee, drink an extra Coca-Cola. Let's go. Come on, Michael.
Now, you talked about Grillo last week, and he was kind of on you were looking at him. I don't remember how he did last week, but here he is again on the board.
Yeah, I mean, Grillo's one of those guys statistically, kind of like Paul Casey. When you're looking at ball striking metrics, and again, you hear people talk about it all the time, throw out putting. Last week, the guys that were at the top of the leaderboard, they were all putting well. It just takes a putting week. Grillo is the kind of guy, dependably, he's great off the tee. He's unbelievable on approach. His ball striking's immaculate, and you just got to hope he doesn't lose 5 or 7 strokes putting like he did last week. Much to the same effect, that ultimately almost did Abraham Ansarin. I mean, the guy lost like 3 or 4 strokes putting the very first day. So even though Grillo missed the cut last week, you can see like his DK price, he's still $8,200 in this field, and it's because he is so good in those ball striking metrics. And you just gotta hope he has that 1 week where he putts basically even, and it gives him an opportunity to score and play.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at Homa. I know Homa's been struggling as of late, but he sets up well here, and I like his pricing. And Kokrak, who's been super great this year. I mean, it was a little rough at the U.S. Open for him, but at 9,500, feels a little pricey.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is for me, what I'm scared of is you got a couple guys at the top of the board, Bryson, and the other one's Webb Simpson, even though Webb hasn't been playing like Webb Simpson lately. If those guys get hot, they can run away with this thing, right? Because it's not a difficult course. This is a place where you could score. Again, when you're talking about in the upper 20s for being under par, they're absolutely lighting this thing up. And every now and then, the cream is going to rise to the top in these weaker fields. The only thing that I would say is with the variance, guys are not going to find themselves in the same kind of trouble they would at a U.S. Open or a Memorial. They're going to hit errant shots, but they're not going to be in or behind a row of trees. They're still going to have opportunities to get up and down, and you're not going to see guys post big numbers. That's what's done Harold Varner in a number of times. It's what did Bryson in at the Memorial a couple years ago. It just takes that one hole on a difficult course where you end up 3-4 over, and that grenades your entire week. So I think the availability for the course playing very, very easy and taking those big numbers out of play, I think you can be a little more erratic. I think you can go down the board a little bit farther, and I think you'll be surprised at the way that you can get lineups and guys to perform based off of the fact that there just aren't the same number of big, crazy, ugly numbers hanging out there on the golf course.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I like Hideki, and I seen Kisner seems to be playing well lately, so I like him at that price point. So let's move on to the overall ranking, Tony.
Yeah, so overall, that takes into consideration, like we've talked about in previous episodes, not only stats and course history, but also form. We look at the strokes gained metrics in every one of the tournaments leading up, as well as finishing position. And so you can see here, no big surprise, Bryson, top of the board. He's the lowest guy on the odds board. He's the highest price guy on daily fantasy, and he's number one in the statistical model. Again, Jason Kokrak, a guy I love this week, a guy a lot of people will be playing, whether it's DFS or betting. He comes in number 3. Joaquin Niemann, who did not have a great tournament last week, but again, fits the mold for a ball striker's ball striker. The guy just is immaculate. He just needs to figure out his putting. He looked very unsure in the Traveler, especially early on Sunday morning when he came out. But again, it just takes that 1 week where those guys have basically a flat 0 strokes gained or lost putting week, and they will find themselves in contention. The one guy that I won't be betting that probably scares the crap out of me other than Bryson and Webb is Hideki. Hideki's played very, very well this year, very, very consistent. The ball striking is always great. He's good off the tee. He's great with long irons. And he comes in ranked in basically the teens in every one of the major categories. So he's a guy at 14-1. I can't get down with that number. I can't take that much of my equity and place it on him. I'm going to find guys farther down the board. Another guy here with some pretty good value that's showing up. His form has not been great. But he is a guy that you should be targeting because I think a lot of people got burned by him last week. Is Keegan Bradley. Sets up very well at $9,000. Not much of a discount on DraftKings, but at 40-1, 50-1 on some books, you can find value on him on the betting boards, and he's a guy that I'll be targeting this week as well too.
Before we get into the odds, Tony, one thing that I think it's important that we bring up again is that what you're showing here when we go through this, when we're doing our stream here, is you're showing like top 10, top 15 based on your model. Your model has, everyone ranked in the field from 1 to however many are actually in the field. And case in point, if you were just looking at our stream last week and you didn't ask Tony for his data, English was not in the top 15 or 10. He was down there in the 29, 26, something like that.
Yep.
So if you're putting together DraftKings lineup, yeah, it's always great to look at those top 10. But let me tell you, there's 65 and ties make the cut. So you have a lot bigger pool to go off of than just those top 10. And those top 10, they're going to be used by everybody. So if you want to get a little leverage on the field, look at the rest of the data, look at the rest of the pool, because you want to get some leverage. If everyone's playing the same guys, and we've learned this, it's hard to climb up that leaderboard in DraftKings come over the weekend because you're like, oh, this guy's killing it, but guess what? Everybody has him, so I'm not gaining on anybody.
Yeah, we're all looking at the same statistics, right? So there's landmines at the top of this board, right? We don't know who that guy is. We don't know who's going to be the Grillo or the Keegan this week, right? The guy that basically blows up everybody's lineups, even though statistically they set up fantastic. So what you're talking about with variation, right, specifically when it comes to DraftKings strategy, one big thing that I would say is go down and find guys within there. Look at some metrics that may not be what I would call like par for the course, like that everybody's looking at, right? Everybody's looking at strokes gained off the tee. Everybody's looking at ball striking. Take a look at some of the deeper metrics. You can do that through services like Fantasy National, which is what I use to build mine. RickRunGood.com is another one where Rick Gaiman puts out a number of statistics. Regardless of what it is, try and find out what you like. And then at the end of the day, it comes down to feel, right? Another big thing that I think a lot of people make mistake-wise on DraftKings is tournament selection, right? You and I have this conversation all the time about tournament selection. Like everybody wants to enter in the $20 millionaire maker and win the $1,000,000, but there's a bazillion people in that tournament. Sometimes it's better to enter some of those smaller fields where you've got, I don't know, 200, 500, 1,000 people in there, because your odds are better. And even if you go 5 of 6, there's still an opportunity for you to make some money on DraftKings. So tournament selection is a huge thing. And I think for a lot of people, it goes unnoticed. People are just throwing their money in blindly thinking, well, I need to get 6 of 6 and hopefully I hit a winner in another top 5 and I have an opportunity coming down on Sunday. The reality is tournament selection plays a huge role in building your bankroll and doing things like that. Cash games are a great way to do that. And when we talk about like selection, like player pool selection, by the way, if anybody wants a copy of the file that I send out, we've got about a dozen people, Mike, that we send this out to, like in our little group of friends each week. We have a nice conversation back and forth about it, talk about bets. Happy to send that along. You can send an email to dfsjags@gmail.com. You can like, comment, or sub here on YouTube, or you can go to our Twitter account, which we just reactivated here this week. It's at DFSJags on Twitter. Send us a direct message, send us an email, reach out to us, leave a comment. We'd be happy to share the file that we put together every week. And hopefully you have the same kind of luck that we did last week for the Travelers.
Yeah, for sure, Tony. Let's move on to the odds for this week.
So you can see here the odds aren't great. As you would imagine, the guys that are playing the best golf, the big names, their odds are pretty down. Now, these are as of Monday, and they've shifted a little bit since that point in time. Like there's some places where you can find Webb as high as 22, 25 tonight. At the same point in time, the big thing for me when I'm selecting golfers, right, not only the statistical piece, how guys are playing down the stretch, what they've done this year, course history, all those things, but I want to find value on the betting board. To me, Patrick Reed at 16-1 or Webb Simpson at 16-1, there's not a lot of value there. Like we talked about, because of how easy this course is, it brings in a lot of variance. Guys that have what I would call spike performances, they're more likely to have that performance in a tournament like this where the course is not going to play very difficult. So if a guy gets a hot putter, the guy's striking the crap out of the ball one week, you can get a guy that pops way down the board. For me, like I talked about, I'm going to start my board, my betting card much farther down. I like to live kind of in that 25 to 80 range. That to me is where the majority of winners come from in the PGA tournaments that we've been betting on this week. Last week with Harris English, he was in at 40-1, and I think he's the 12th winner that I've hit this year. So finding an area where you're comfortable, where you can get some value, circling guys that maybe are off a tick, but you just have a feeling about them. Use the data to help you center on your guys, but then make selections based off of that value that you see. And if you get that little itch in the back of your head that says, man, I think this is a week where a guy like Charlie Hoffman or Gary Woodland or even Bubba Watson, who absolutely melted down the stretch of the Travelers, God, did he fall apart the last 5 holes. But you can find guys down the board that have just as good of an opportunity to win as a guy like Will Zalatoris or Joaquin Niemann at 22 to 25-1. To me, when I see those numbers, Joaquin Niemann at 25-1, is he 3 times better than Max Homa? Is he, 4 times better than a guy who's at 100-1? I don't know. To me, there's a lot of variance there, and I think you need to find guys that provide value. Looking at the board here, like I said, Webb Simpson scares the crap out of me. If Webb plays like he does and gets a hot putter, he is a Donald Ross specialist. He's won at Wyndham. He's played well at Eastlake. This is a Donald Ross track, so he sets up very well. He scares me because I don't know if I can get there with him at 16-1.
What do you think about Phil there at 50-1? On this
Phil's
course.
A brand thing to me. So here's the thing, right? Like I mentioned about how you can be erratic and there's not big numbers hanging out there. That's Phil Mickelson, right? He hits bombs, he sprays shots, he hits unbelievable, shots around the green to save par, to make birdie. He's just an unbelievable shot maker. A guy like Phil is definitely in play. For me, he's just not a guy that I bet. I never bet Phil because there's just way too much aggravation in following Phil for 4 days, right? He can show up. He could win this thing, But for me, it's just not something that I'm willing to do, and it's just not on brand for the kind of guys I like to bet.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his, but since I don't play a ton of lineups in DraftKings, I got to have those guys that I feel comfortable with all 4 days, and Phil's just all over the board. Like you said, he can blow up. He can have a big round. It's just hard for him to put 4 good rounds of golf together, usually, and it's just too much stress for me. So I do stay away from him. But at 50 to 1, I was just curious what you were thinking there. So let's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, when you talk about DraftKings too, that's the other thing, right? When we're comparing odds, we're looking for value. The same thing can be done when you're looking at like DraftKings salaries. You got a guy like Keegan Bradley at $9,000. Is he that much better than a guy like Kyle Stanley or Adam Hadwin, who are in the mid sevens? You can grab a couple of those guys. Ches Reavie is another guy who's been playing very well as of late, and you can scoop him up at $7,600. So that's what I'm saying. When you're looking at guys on the board, if something seems mispriced to you, 9 times out of 10 it probably is mispriced, and you should stay away from it. But again, you gotta pick and choose your battles. Figure out what kind of builds you want to do on DraftKings, like what kind of things you want to target. I love stacks. I like stacking bombers or good putters or guys who are great from 150 yards out. Those are important things to do because they differentiate your lineup and give you that opportunity to hit. Look, the reality is you're not going to win every week on DraftKings. It's extremely difficult to do. But if you can create some differentiation in your lineups, it gives you opportunity and a little bit of edge against the other 8 billion Jags that are out there that are submitting lineups.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of why you moved away from it, right? You're now into strictly the betting. I'm still doing the DraftKings, but like Tony said, it is extremely hard. You got 6 golfers on your card who have to get through the cut, and golf's it's an individual sport, right? We don't know when these guys wake up in the morning. Is their back hurting? Did they have a argument with their wife the night before? Are they worried about something? You just don't know. And these guys that just look like they're going to kill the course, they end up tanking your lineup. So it's extremely hard. That's why Tony's pivoted. And Tony, what's interesting about that, I would think picking winners would be extremely hard, but you're doing it. And let's go to your bets. And then I want to have a follow-up question as far as how you're betting. And, I know Mayao, and I think you've done it a few times where you bet top 10 and top 20. Want to kind of hear your philosophy on that when you tend to do that. But it seems like right now these days you're just pretty much playing straight up winners. So let's go to your bets, and then you can respond to my question there.
Yeah, so this week, like I mentioned to you, not a lot excites me above 40 to 1. Kokrak is a guy, to me, he checks all the boxes. He's kind of discount Bryson DeChambeau. He's great off the tee. He's having an unbelievable putting year. And to me, that's what this tournament is going to come down to. You're going to have to be able to do really well off the tee, put yourself in position to score. Then you're going to have to sink putts. And Kokrak has just done that tournament in and tournament out this year. He showed up at big spots. He's played well at places. I think he has 2 wins this year. This would be win number 3 for him. So the likelihood and probability starts to dwindle a little bit when you talk about multiple time winners on tour. But, I love Jason Kokrak's game. Charlie Hoffman, dude, I've been betting Charlie Hoffman all year. I'm not going to hop off that train. For me, it's probably more FOMO than anything else, because if he does hit, I will put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger. Gary Woodland, Woodland's a guy that's been sliding back now. I've seen him some places at 60, 65 to 1. I hit him at 40 to 1. I think there's great value there. Woodland's a guy, when you talk about off the tee, and again, it's been a little erratic this year off the tee, but his game is starting to take form. He had some good flashes at the U.S. Open, and when you look at the long-term form for what Gary Woodland does well, he's terrible around the greens, but he's good with approaches, and he's good off the tee, and to me, that's what sets him up for success here this week. Keegan Bradley, again, ball striker, just like Emiliano Grillo. 40 to 1. I've seen him drifted down to 55 and 60 on some boards. So I think there's and then Siwoo. We talk about Siwoo when we're talking about Pat Dye courses or Pete Dye courses. Siwoo's the same way at Donald Ross. He just tends to show up, plays well at Wyndham. He's played well at Eastlake in the past. So, Siwoo's another guy. And then I have down at the board that little highlighted piece right there, looking at Webb Simpson. Webb his Donald Ross track record And the way that he plays, he's not a bomber, but he's not short. And if he's hitting the ball well off the tee, I mean, good God, Webb Simpson can score in buckets. I mean, he's just unbelievable. Bombs this week, I'll have a bunch of bombs. And again, when I'm betting bombs, I'm not putting the same number of units or the same amount of money I would on a bet at 25 or 40 to 1. I'm probably doing a fifth or half or 20% what I would be doing on a normal bet. So I've got a pretty long list of guys because, like I said, this course just sets up for a lot of variance and brings a number of guys into play. Henrik Norlander is a guy that earlier in the year, he had been playing really well. He is a ball striker. He's god awful around the greens and a terrible putter. But again, if he's not hitting greens in regulation, he's going to be out anyways. If he can get this approaches working, Norlander's guy at 200 to 1, there's immense value there. Dylan Fratelli. Dylan was in the hunt in a couple big tournaments early in the year. He's definitely fallen off as of late. But Fratelli is another guy. If he's striking the ball well, he can get a hot putter and play well. Sam Ryder. Sam Ryder is discount Sam Burns. If you can get Sam Ryder at 250 to 1, to me, there's great value there. And to be honest with you, could be dead completely honest with you, there's not a shitload of difference between Keegan Bradley and Sam Ryder. It's just Keegan Bradley's been doing Keegan stuff for 15 plus years on tour, and Sam Ryder's only been on tour for 5 or 6. So I'll be kind of all over the place. I'll have sprinkles a number of different places, but I think I've got a pretty good card. A lot more bets than I would typically place, but my allocation, because I'm starting farther down the board, I'll have about the same amount of money I always do each week.
And again, you're pretty much betting just straight up winners, right? But you have played top 10, top 20. When do you decide to do that? And
I like the prop bets, right? Your top 10s, your top 5s, your top 20s in big tournaments. So you're talking about WGCs, you're talking about places like the Farmers or Memorial, where you've got just a star-studded field, and guys just tend to show up. Xander, Casey, they're perennial. Louis, perennial top 5s, perennial top 10s. And then top 20s, some of those guys that I have bombs on in weeks where I am playing props, I'll put a top 20 on a guy like that because I can get decent odds. A guy like Sam Ryder at 250 to 1, you can find a top 20 on him at 5, 6, 7 to 1. That plays as good as if Bryson DeChambeau wins the tournament at 7 to 1. So those prop bets, it really depends on the field for me. Like I said, prefer the tougher, stronger courses, stronger fields, I should say, just because I think you can find guys who tend to play well in those scenarios, and that's a good time to make those prop bets. I don't like doing verses like where you take a guy like Sepp Straka and play him against Mark Hubbard, but those are for other guys. It's not brand for me. It's not something I like to do. I prefer to play the finishing positions. And selfishly, I like 4 days of entertainment, right? If I do a prop bet, a sprinkle here on a guy like Chris Kirk and he misses the cut, oh, well, he was 125 to 1, or I had him at top 20 at 5 to 1. Who cares? I'm not putting a ton of allocation value on a guy like that. But I would say for me, the strategy is those prop bets pay well, and I've hit a number of them in big tournaments. U.S. Open, it basically saved my week because they had Louis and Casey in top 10s and top 5s. So those kind of things can be a nice backstop on your betting card to make sure you don't end up asked out at the end of the tournament.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Tony. So, I mean, let's try to keep it rolling. Let's hope we hit a second week in a row here. I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's going to give me your three players to win this tournament this week?
Yeah, so who do I like? I'm not betting him, but like I said, I am scared to death of Webb Simpson. I don't know why. He's not playing great. Hideki Matsuyama would be another one. If Hideki plays like Hideki does, there's really no stopping him. Like he did at the Masters, he got his putting rolling, and he just played phenomenally, and that's really the difference for him. So I like Matsuyama, I like Webb Simpson, and then a guy that I actually have a bet on this week. I really do like Charlie Hoffman. He sets up really well here, which probably means he's going to miss the cut. But he is a guy that I think has a great opportunity here. I think I had Grillo slotted in there last week at that spot, and he missed the cut. So, take it for what it's worth. That's why when we do betting cards, we're betting 5, 6 guys, not just centering on one dude. But, I would say Webb, Matsuyama, and Hoffman. Who do you like this week?
So I also like Webb. I think he's due, and it sounds like this could be a course that he could get back on track. So I'm going to throw Webb out there. I'm going to throw Hideki. I've been playing Hideki on Draftkings my lineups. He's just a solid guy. He's a little higher priced than normal this week just because the field is not as great as it usually is, but not to say that it's bad. But yeah, I love Hideki, so I'm going to throw him out there. And yeah, I'm going to go with you on Hoffman. So I'm on
Yeah, just
Hoffman as
tailing me on
well.
all three picks.
Absolutely,
I'm going to need you to
absolutely.
work a little bit harder in future episodes to pick your own guys.
Hey,
I
I
mean,
want to
good
say
God.
last week when we closed it out, even though you bet on him,
You picked him.
English was not in your top three. He was in
Yep.
my three, and I was
You
on him.
picked him.
So
Yep.
anyhow, just saying, how can I go away from Hoffman? I mean, I've been playing him lately, and like you said, everything looks great. Let me go back to that real quick. I mean, go back to the odds there, not there. Let's go to the bets. I mean, 40-1. He's on your stats. Let me go to the overall ranking. He's showing up there, number 7 in the overall stats, and I mean, he's due. He's due. Other than, I mean, it's hard to pick these other guys. Yes, I can always go to DeChambeau, which I did. He was one of my 3 last week, and these are the easy guys to pick to maybe go after. But again, Hideki, Hoffman, and Simpson. Simpson's not been playing great by by any means, but he's due, and he is a golfer that I've liked to play on my Draftkings lineups in the past as well. So
Yeah, another guy that could be interesting this week because he has been playing so well as of late. Is Kevin Kisner. Kisner, I think,
yeah,
shot a 63 on Sunday at the Travelers. Again, he's not known to be a bomber, but he is fantastic off the tee. He's a great putter. And really what it comes down to for him is if he's hitting approaches. If Kisner's hitting approaches like he was in the Travelers in the weekend, I mean, he's the kind of guy that can score in absolute bunches. I mean, he shot 7 under. He's just one of those guys that I think flies under the radar because there's nothing flashy about him. He's a grinder. He just is in every single tournament. He's a perennial top 40 guy. But, Kisner is another guy this week that could show up. And how could we forget Matthew Wolff, right? Like, Wolff's been this weird enigma where he was withdrawing from tournaments. He's talking about mental health issues. He doesn't play for like 3-4 weeks, shows up at the U.S. Open, and finds himself in like the second or third to last group on Sunday. So he's a guy, he finished second last year to Bryson. So the kind of courses, when you start drawing parallels, the kind of courses that Bryson plays well, Bryson won here last year, Wolff plays well at. So Wolff is another guy that I think could have some value. And because of the erratic nature of how he's played as of late, I don't think he's going to be a popular play on DraftKings, and I don't think that a lot of people are going to be betting him either. But him and Kisner both, I think you could get some, whether it's equity on DraftKings, leverage on DraftKings, or get some value on the betting boards. Those are 2 guys that you could look at and take a flyer on. Again, on a course that's not going to provide a lot of trouble out there. There's no big numbers lurking for Matthew Wolff if he yanks one, 300 yards off the tee into another fairway.
yeah, I was just checking out his odds, 25-1, not bad. And I agree. I mean, he had a nice U.S. Open, and so young guy has that weird, quirky swing, which is crazy, but it works for him. So
He gets that
yeah,
before he goes,
yeah,
right?
it's crazy.
He gets that little trigger.
It's crazy. Anyhow, so I think that's about it, Tony. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, man, I'm excited for this week, Rocket Mortgage. I think it's going to be a super entertaining tournament. We've got the 4th of July weekend coming up, so probably not a lot of people paying attention, which also means Showdown people won't be paying attention. The books will not be updating numbers as quickly as they usually do. So you might be buyers if you're late in the betting market picking up live odds on guys or post second, third, fourth round. You can find some good numbers out there because the books will be sleeping on stuff. It'll be fun, man. And hey, we got another major around the corner, Mike. The Open,
I know,
right?
I know.
The
I
British
can't wait
Open is around the corner.
I can't wait for it. I mean, you talked about Showdown. We'll talk about that in another session. But I actually did okay in the Showdowns this week. I was a little profitable.
You had a great week on Showdown, man.
It's a completely different game, though. And the data, while it helps, I have a different theory on the Showdown. So we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, it actually worked for me this weekend. So was super excited about that. And yes, majors are where I actually invest the most in DraftKings.
Where you lose the most as well?
Where I lose the most, but I invest the most. And you mentioned it earlier. I'm a sucker for those big tournaments. I want that $1 million hit. But I'm also, I am lately, like when it's a non major, I'm playing those single entry tournaments. I'm playing those smaller tournaments where I'm going to have better odds. And if I do play one of the bigger ones. It's just one entry, but I focus on those single entries where I have the best odds, and that has been working for me
Yeah.
quite well lately. So
Yeah, in a
again,
future episode, we'll have my buddy Rick. Riku, as a lot of people know him in the industry. He took down the 550 single entry here not too long ago for $100,000. So Rick will be on as one of our guests talking a little DFS. We'll get down into the noise a little bit, right, when we start talking about his strategy and how he approaches it, as well as yours on Showdown, because you've got a great philosophy that's provided you with a lot of success on those weekend games. So we'll start digging in here in future episodes. But I think thus far, I'm looking forward. I feel good. I think we're going to hit another winner this week, and we'll have more to talk about next week.
yeah, let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling. All right, Tony, thank you again so much. I know we started a little late tonight, but
Late night session. Late night session.
hey, we wanted to get you the content tonight, everyone. So it's important. So you have the rest of tonight and tomorrow to look at it. So enjoy. Good luck this week, and hit Tony or I up if you have any follow-up questions. And again, get Tony's data. I highly recommend it. There's more on it that we're showing here, and especially if you're playing DraftKings, you need this data. Anyhow, that's all I'm going to say. Everyone else, have a great night. You too, Tony. Take care.
See you, Mike.